What is going on, investors? Hopefully you guys are having a great day out there. Time to talk about PayPal Holdings Company, ticker symbol PYPL. Obviously the maker of PayPal and the Venmo app and other popular payment services out there. They also offer Bitcoin. I was buying Bitcoin on PayPal earlier this year as well. So PayPal just came out with their earnings after the bell. Also gave some revenue guidance for the full year, and it kind of beat consensus. So everything's looking good here. When we jump over the numbers, we'll see evidence of this. Okay, we'll go over the balance sheet, we'll go over the statement of operations, we'll see how PayPal is doing financially, so you can kind of make a good decision on if this is a stock that you want to buy or add to, or potentially even sell if you own some shares. Now, spoiler alert, the stock chart has just been on fire. Last time we analyzed this company was probably last quarter. It was stuck in this kind of sideways consolidation. Once it broke out from there, boy, it was off to the races with PayPal. And I want to say that it could potentially be setting up for almost the exact same situation. So we'll see if PayPal is able to follow through. When we get over the stock chart, we'll pick some price levels where maybe you can buy this stock, or if you want to sell your shares. We'll see what kind of stuff we see when we get over the stock chart. Now, before we do all of that, I do want to say that I own about 3 shares of PayPal. I'm balling, right? Okay, I only paid $81 per share though. Okay, and now it's like 260. So yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I might go to the golf course later and think of PayPal when I'm hitting that pitching wedge. So moving on to the balance sheet here, we'll go over the balance sheet, we'll go over the operations, profit, loss, those types of things. So PayPal's balance sheet is really nice. Obviously, okay, this is a recently spun off company, okay, from eBay. So typically when you're in that situation, the balance sheet tends to look pretty nice. They have about $13 billion in cash. At the beginning there, they had about, we'll call that about 11. So solid there. Where the uptick happened, I think it really came from this long-term debt. We went from 5 billion up to about 9 billion in debt. So a lot of that money, I think, is still sitting on the cash side, but it looks like they've spent a little bit of it. So, but nothing really to see here on the balance sheet side. They have these customer deposits here at 33 billion. That gets balanced off on the liability side at 35 billion. You just want to factor that in. If you're going to analyze this company from a balance sheet perspective, like an asset based kind of evaluation, you just want to factor that in, that these customer deposits sit on the asset side, but it's not like PayPal can kind of like run off with that money. It's really their customers' money. So just something that you want to keep in mind. Now, moving on to revenues here. So, man, this was a great quarter for PayPal. I know it was the fourth quarter, but boy, this was a really good quarter. We see in 2019, for the last 3 months of the quarter, they had a $4.9 billion in revenue. This year, $6.1 billion. Hello, that is absolutely amazing. I mean, look, in all of 2019, they had $17.7 billion in revenue. That means this quarter was like more than a third of what they did in all of 2019. It was just a phenomenal quarter. You see here in 2020, we did $21.5 billion worth of revenue. So if you start annualizing out this number right here, the $6 billion, you get closer to $25 billion. Boy, they could have a great year next year. Now, they have other expenses. They have transaction expenses. They have these credit losses. What I noticed about these credit losses, actually year over year on the quarterly basis, they actually went down. So I actually think that's a positive, not only for PayPal, but for the broader economy. If people are not losing their PayPal account, they're not ditching it or whatever, or basically, making PayPal kind of come up with the funds there, it's actually pretty good. It means people are doing relatively well. Now, for the full year, we went from about 1.4 up to 1.7 billion on those credit losses. So it did tick up for the year, but when you tick up this much on the revenue side, I'd expect obviously transaction and credit losses to increase as well. But we see actually in the quarter over quarter, year over year on the quarterly basis, we ticked up a lot on the revenue side, and our transaction losses actually went down. So that's actually really good. Now, total operating expenses came in at $5.1 billion. They were at $4.1 billion in the previous year. So we ticked those up by about $1 billion, almost exactly actually $1 billion. We see here for the full year, we ticked those up by about $3 billion. Let's come down to net income. They have some other income here. It appears it's doing rather well. It's something that's flowing in on a regular basis. So we'll see if that happens quarter over quarter into next quarter. But we got on the net income side, $1.5 billion in net income. That is $1 billion over 2019. That's really, really strong. We see here for the full year, we went from 2.5 billion all the way up to $4.2 billion. You see here, we made $1.32 per share diluted in 2020 in the fourth quarter. Hello, that's amazing. And we made $3.54. That's over a third of the earnings came in this quarter. So if PayPal can continue this momentum, then the earnings should follow, because this is just a really clean business. It's actually a pretty old business and it's doing quite well. Now, from the cash flow perspective, I just want to point one thing out about cash flows. Tell you what, they look fine year over year, quarter over quarter. It's about what you would expect. But what I would urge you probably to do is they come in here and they take out transaction and credit losses. Look, PayPal is always going to have transaction and credit losses. I would take this 366 and go ahead and add this back in here. Same with this 381. I would subtract it out of here. Just something that if you want to analyze this company from the cash flow perspective, I would add that number back in to do your type of math. Not necessarily something I'm doing myself, but it's just something that I wanted to point out. Now, everything looks good from the cash flow perspective. They issued some shares, raised a little bit of money there. Here's where they borrowed a little bit of money as well. Everything looks really strong in my opinion. They also repaid. It looks like they did a little bit of tap dance refinancing kind of stuff. Everything looks super strong in my opinion for PayPal. Now, coming over the stock chart, speaking of strong, everything looks amazing. So I had this zoomed out. I wanted to show you first this sideways consolidation here that we made. Okay, PayPal was on a monster run. Okay, like a lot of stocks that made a low kind of in February, March of 2020. And then boom, had a V-shaped recovery and then kind of went sideways for a while. And then boom, it launched up again. And so I want to show you that potentially we're making a similar formation up here. Okay, we didn't consolidate for nearly as long, but we consolidated, and once we got above 255, we'll call that 255 today. Okay, the shares in the after hours are trading at 257 right now, so we're above the all-time highs here with PayPal. Okay, we're at 257. We see the last time we broke above this upper end of our range when we sideways consolidated, we broke above it. It went sideways for a minute and then boom, it launched up again. So that's kind of what I would be looking for with PayPal. Okay, this $255 level with PayPal should act as some support. Okay, we get up to 257. I would actually expect this stock to pull back at some point and retest 255. If 255 is able to hold several times and then we get some momentum with the stock, I think it's off to the races. This thing could go higher. Now, if we get a break of 255, this stock could break 255. If for some reason the stock trades down, the broader market sells off, whatever it might be, we could come down here, I think initially we'll bump this up to 245, just make these numbers all round. So we go 255, we break 255, we come down here to 245. I like that level. Even lower, it's right on our 50-day moving average right now, 230. I wouldn't expect that to happen in a short period of time, but over the coming month, if you get a retest of the lower end of this channel at 230 with PayPal, say you're like me, you got a couple shares, you want to add one or you want to start a position. This is like Walmart price on sale. You know what I mean? You go to Walmart, you're expecting to pay one price, and then they got the little smiley face sticker on there and it's on clearance. Then you come in there and you buy a lot of it. Okay, whether or not that happens or not, I'm not exactly sure with this one. There's two different scenarios that I think are going to happen with PayPal. We stay above this 255, we dance, and then we continue the momentum, or we come back down here and consolidate more in this box and then probably resume an uptrend with PayPal. Because when you come and look at the financials, just this company's doing really good. They've got just a really mature business model. Everything looks super solid to me. So I like PayPal for the long term. I think they're doing a little bit of a share buyback, or if they've kind of authorized one. They don't pay a dividend or anything like that, but I think you can just keep waiting with this one. They have such a growing business that those types of things might come down the road at some point. So that was PayPal. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. We'll be back again soon with more videos. Good luck with your investments.